it's Jess.
And it's James.
We're taking a look today at the Warcraft 2 Orc Grunt figure. He was made in-house by Blizzard before they started licensing out some of their figures. He is my favorite of the Blizzard-made Warcraft figures for one simple reason. His tiny hat. And when you take it off, he has a bald spot, but he is trying to cover that stuff up.
That is orc pattern baldness. It's very common in orcs his age, and it's nothing to be ashamed of.
That's right. He still works the style, though. And we'll come back to this hat, because that sucker does not stay on very well. We're actually just going to take it off for the time being.
And the reason is he's not ashamed to show his glorious green head.
Why does he have a tiny hat, then?
Well, it's part of his culture.
That's suspect. All right, let's take a look at his articulation. So, as you can see, his kind of pose here is a little bit of that battle lunge, one leg forward. We've got some movement back and forth at the thigh, and then that's it for the legs. We've got a waist swivel. He can do a full swivel around there.
A lot of yoga.
A lot of yoga. Didn't go to his knees, though. You got to keep the knees limber. He's got a twists here up at the elbow. As you can see, he's got a little bit of a head movement. It is hampered. He's got the long beard. He's got the long braided ponytail at the back. Not super fabulous in articulation, but he's decent. You can get him in a couple poses. You can get him shaking his fist at the sky or pounding somebody. You can have him raising his claw fist, or it can hold his axe. You can get a come here kind of a pose. So he's got a couple options, mostly having to do with his hands for posing.
Compared to the Warcraft 2 Alliance Footman, he makes a lot more with his limited articulation.
He's got expressive hands.
He really does, and his pose reminds me more of the early Masters of the Universe figures. They would also be in those kind of battle poses.
Oh, yeah.
But they would still...
And he's just as ripped as He-Man.
Even more so. And he didn't cheat by getting the power of Grayskull.
No, just by being corrupted.
Just by being a strong, hard-working orc.
By evil magic.
Well, that too. But that's fine. So, yeah, he gets a lot more out of his posing and his articulation than the Footman does. And he stands a lot better as well.
He's pretty secure. You can definitely get him down pretty easily and get his feet flat to the point where if you tap him, he's not going to fall over. Articulation... I'm going to have to give him a 2. It's very limited, and I think the expressiveness comes more from the paint and the sculpt than the actual articulation. So speaking of the paint and the sculpt, it is fantastic. If you look in his mouth there, you can see...
And we'll try and zoom in just a little bit for you.
You can see some sludge because he's been eating orc food. Whatever that is, I imagine that it's not super clean. You can see the little skull with the horns, demon emblem right here on his loincloth. You can see the rivets on his harness. He's got the claws on his hands. He's got the fur on his boots. I love this. If you turn him to the back, here you've got the rivets. Here you've got more little skull emblems. So that's really cool. He's got 2 different boots going on. You can see that his shoulder pads are different. One has spikes, one does not. He's even got a little metal holder for his ponytail. The braid is sculpted in. The hair is sculpted for what's there. This is...
And what's there is just gorgeous.
It is. I mean, I can't blame him for wanting to keep the full head. Well, as much of the head as he could. His hat does fit on fairly well. It just doesn't stay on. It's really cute. He's got the 2 little horns. One of them is chipped off. We're looking at the sculpt of his weapon here. We've got the same symbol on the... Oh, that's not the same symbol as his loincloth, but I think it is the same symbol on the back of his boots. That's also on his axe. The axe has little battle chips in it. It's got the wrapped leather handle. It's got the studs. So sculpt is just gorgeous. The paintwork is incredibly clean. Something that you really don't see on a figure nowadays coming in at this price point very often. They're originally around $20, $25, I think. This is more like a, collector level figure nowadays. But absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to give his paint and sculpt a 4.5. Accessories, he does just come with the axe that we've taken a look at here. It's got the rivets, it's got the emblem, it's got the little rusted edge in the wood. He does hold it fairly well, a little bit loose in his hand, as you can see. Just a little bit loose there. And then he's got his hat. And that's really all he comes with.
And that's all he needs.
Well, he needs a hat that stays on better because as soon as he's in battle, it's like falling off. Oh.
It's to distract his enemies. They take a swing at his hat, they think they've gotten him, and then boom, he gets them with the axe.
Yeah, it makes him more angry.
Basic grunt techniques 101.
He's really angry at me. His hat stayed on a lot better that time when I shook him. Normally it will fall off pretty quickly. Accessories, I'm going to give him about a 2.5. They're really nice. Maybe a 3. Let's give him a 3. They're really nicely done, and they do work well with him. That's all there really is.
They're kind of plain, especially compared to the Alliance footmen, who had the really cool detailing with the rivets and the emblem of Lordaeron and the sword with the battle damage and the different kind of paint on it.
Yeah, and he does have some of that detailing. It's just not as much like James mentioned there was a wash on a lot of the footman stuff. There's not a wash here. It's just the plain plastic colors, though it is with the leather handle. That's nice. Play value. I think he's very sturdy. All of these Warcraft figures that do this battle lunge have fallen multiple times on our shelf, and they never look the worse for it. They always come back up strong. So I would say, you probably, with a little kid, are going to lose the hat first, maybe
Definitely.
even lose the axe. But you'd still get a lot of play value. I've seen plenty of him on eBay, too, without the hat, so that is a common thing once he's been opened. You need to keep an eye on it. What would you give him play value, James?
I would say he's a solid 4. Even if your kid doesn't necessarily know what Warcraft is, he's a scary, mean-looking orc. He'd be a great bad guy or like a kind of a edgy good guy, I guess, if your kid's into that.
He's like a...
I'm not saying I was when I was a kid. I wasn't, weird or anything.
Me neither.
Yeah.
He's kind of like World War Hulk. Almost, right?
A little bit. He's kind of got some of that vibe going on. He could definitely hang out with the Hulk. I think they share a lot of common interests.
I think he'd hit on Kiara, and then she would see him with his hat off and be like, oh, the Old Strong doesn't like this.
The Old Strong were actually bald. They kind of had the same haircut.
Oh, you're right. Never mind. He's one of them. I've got my comics mixed up.
Yeah.
All right, well, there we go. We'll be back in a second. Take a look at his overall score.
All right, we're back with the final score for Warcraft 2, Orc Grunt.
We're going to give him a 4. He did edge out the human footman, I think mainly because his sculpt is so cool looking and it's so expressive. We'll take a 360 view of him. You can drink that all in.
I'm drinking it. Just like if it was the blood of Manaroth.
Oh.
It's delicious.
Yeah. You two should hang out.
I would. But I've been told never to bother the Orc clans again. I don't want to get into the details.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's painful memories.
So, overall, I think he's definitely worth picking up. I feel like more so than the human footman, with the others in this line, you want this Orc Grunt because you want to put him next to Grom and you want to put him next to Thrall, and they're going to look absolutely badass compared to him. As cool as he looks, it'll be clear that they're in charge and he's a grunt. Whereas the human footman kind of hangs out more or less by himself. I mean, there's the only major human that they made in this line was Arthas, and he wouldn't be hanging out.
Well, at one point he did.
Yeah,
Then he betrayed them to take up Frostmourne.
Yeah. So, I would say a more essential piece, though not as essential if you're looking just for main characters. He is on the secondary market now, only. This figure is fairly old. You'll get him on eBay. He's not a bad price last time I checked compared to the other figures in the line, particularly much like the human footman, because he's not a main character. You're going to be able to get him at a better price than some of the other more famous folks, but still worth picking up if you're a fan of Warcraft, if you're for the Horde. Yeah, go for it.
Loktar Ogar.
Indeed.
But let us know what you think in the comments, or comics. If you want to write comics and then give them to us, we'll take them.
Yeah. Be creative.
Be creative. Let your creativity flow for the Horde. And we'll see you next time.